Welcome to Legal Meets, a look at legal beyond the law. A podcast by Legal. On this episode of Legal Meets, we meet Clarissa Rayward. Clarissa is the author of 2 books and the successful Happy Family Lawyer blog, as well as a speaker, podcast host, and entrepreneur. Welcome everyone to this episode of Legal Meets. I'm joined by Clarissa Rayward, the happy lawyer. Welcome, Clarissa.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have some homegrown talent on. You're in the office in Brisbane. Thanks for jumping in today.
It's no worries, despite the internet debacles.
Yeah, hopefully you're in the same country, so Australia's still trying to get the internet sorted out, but we're good. I want to start off by just kind of getting a glimpse into the person behind the lawyer. And if TED Talks got in touch with you today and said, Clarissa, we'd love you to present, what exactly would you talk about if it wasn't about legal or the law?
Yeah, I think right now something that I'm sort of crafting an article around after some recent challenges is I think we have would be a need to support others, a need to sort of lift everyone around you. And something that I see certainly in the legal industry is that really doesn't happen. It's an industry that's very competitive, and I find that really challenging sometimes. So that's something I'm really doing a bit of work around at the moment, doing some writing on. So that would be my TED Talk.
That's because it's quite adversarial in terms of lawyers are kind of put up against each other. There's obviously that element as well. Is that part of it? And everyone's quite siloed in terms of, I mean, a greater portion of the market is sole practitioners, right? 80%, I think, and above in the main kind of jurisdictions. So is that part of the reason?
Yeah, I think that, but I think, to be honest, amongst the sole practitioners, I find that it can be quite collaborative and cooperative. I think something that I've certainly seen is the industry as a whole, if you just looked at it on large, it is very competitive. And I think we're almost trained that way at university. And whilst within your teams and your firms, you might be quite cooperative and collaborative, once you step outside of individual businesses, that tends to fall apart. And I'm on a bit of a, I don't know,
journey?
I think I'm just I harp on about this at the moment, and I spoke last week about this, but I think for the legal profession to survive into this next phase of change, I think we have to work better together. We have to share our knowledge better. We do have to collaborate, or it will be people outside of the industry that will come in and disrupt it.
That's 100% true. And the interesting thing is, and we'll talk more about this and obviously happiness as well, but one of the greatest, correlations to happiness is community. It's not so much, obviously the other things like money, intelligence, there's no real, correlation there, but the strong one is actually community, and, things like addiction and, other kind of disorders fall on the back of that when people are kind of, disconnected and not a community. So it's interesting to see where your journey is going to end up, and it does, bring people together. So that's a very promising initiative. So I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
And so how did you get into the legal industry in the first place? I mean, you spend your time as a family lawyer. So specifically, what drove you to be a family lawyer as opposed to any other type of lawyer?
Yeah, look, chance and just chance. So getting into law itself, I'd started in a design degree, and I got sort of a couple of years into that and went, I want something really quite different. I missed the intellectual side of what I'd probably done prior to that, and law seemed the obvious choice. It's like if there was a spectrum, I went from this end to that end. In terms of family law, my first job in law, I took an articles of clerkship position in a very small firm here in Brisbane that did criminal law and family law. And I did that because at the time I was really thinking, I don't want to be a lawyer. I didn't really enjoy law school. I'd done an arts degree as well, and I wanted to go off and pursue that. And I sort of made a pact with myself that until I'd actually practiced in a law firm, I felt that I probably was not really in a place to judge what life was like as a lawyer. So I took that job and I loved it. So here I am almost 20 years later practicing as a family lawyer. That's so interesting, because you obviously had a penchant for design, which obviously I wanted to ask you, comes across in all your beautiful branding and marketing and website and whatever else. So that kind of makes sense now. Yeah.
But it's interesting that what you thought that, being a lawyer would be like from the outside maybe was more daunting, and quite the opposite of, people's normal path. They probably think it sounds amazing, get into it, go, this is crap. but you actually kind of had the opposite perspective, and the real life experience was much better. So that was a good litmus test.
Yeah, and look, I love people. So there's probably a whole lot of jobs that I could do, careers that I could have. But that's the bit that I love about the work that I get to do is talking to people all day, working with people. And I think law is sort of the vehicle that lets me do that.
Great, and obviously family law is a great place for that. So that all kind of makes sense. Well, the happy lawyer, as you're known, wasn't always the happy lawyer. And you started writing a blog in 2013, which obviously created a platform for a lot of the other things that you've worked on up till now. What made you want to kind of get into the business of, I guess, happiness, and what was that connection, that you said, hey, now I want to start sharing my thoughts and make other people, happy and share that?
I wish, again, I had a great, business structured story for this, but I found myself in 2013 not very happy, really questioning what I was doing, running a business that probably wasn't really aligned with the values that I had, and really deeply thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And I guess upon reflection and now looking back, hindsight's such a wonderful thing. I, by chance, on a Saturday night, started a blog called The Happy Family Lawyer. I had no intention of it turning into what it is now, which is a business. And I just liked, I think, the idea of writing, the idea of having a creative outlet. I'm a naturally creative person, and I was really at that point struggling to find that in my life. And so getting into the habit once a week of just writing a blog actually became a really cathartic and joyous exercise. And as I started to do that, I had more lawyers reaching out to me saying, oh, I've read that thing that you wrote last week about happiness or about divorce or about different ways of practicing as lawyers. And I want to learn more about it. And so fast forward again to last year, 2016, I finally had the epiphany and went, well, hang on a second. I've sort of worked my way through unhappiness to happiness, and I've done a lot of research and a lot of reading. Why not write a book about what I've learned? And that's where the Happy Lawyer, Happy Life stuff has come from.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I guess that was the beacon, right? Because you were saying you're missing, well, that element of community is kind of missing, and being brave enough to kind of share your thoughts and being honest obviously brought out a lot of other like-minded people or people feeling the same thing. So it sounds like, again, that journey started a while back, and it's kind of gathering momentum now. So that's all pretty cool to see. And lawyers, as you mentioned, in particular, whether you want to call it an epidemic or whatever it is, basically it's a stressful job. You're dealing with other people's problems. As you said, it's quite competitive. Chasing a billable hour. Endless hours in the office as well. It all kind of takes its toll, and basically, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, all these things are quite prevalent. And get swept under the carpet as well, right? Because it's, the lawyer's obviously putting a face there that, it's on a pedestal in some senses, upholding a lot of morals and ethics as well, and, being infallible in some sense. So kind of, again, borrowing from the title of your latest book, with lawyers under so much, pressure, how can, they be happy? How can a lawyer live a happy life?
Yeah, so for me, I broke it down to 5 simple steps, which conveniently spell the word happy. So it just makes it really easy for me to remember it as well. But it starts at health. So exactly as you're talking about, what I really observed around me is so many of my lawyer friends are great people, but they don't look after themselves, and not because they don't want to. They just don't give it a priority. So they don't exercise because they don't have time. They don't eat well because they don't have time. They don't get enough sleep because there's too much to do, and I've got to work really late, and then I get up really early, and somewhere I've got to look after my kids. And so before you know it, you've got people in our industry who, need their brains working really, really well, but they're not looking after their bodies. So for me, that's where everything starts. And you could ignore my other 4 tips. If you're not going to do health, the rest is window dressing.
It's a vicious cycle, right? Because if you're not, you make really bad decisions when you're not clear in the head, and when you're tired, you kind of give into cravings and all other kind of impulses and whatever else. And like you said,
all goes together.
You're trying to be creative and also deal with very complex kind of issues. And if you're not clear in the mind, you're not really doing the best by your clients either. So you're not actually doing the best.
Yeah. And I think it only takes, either yourself or someone around you to have a significant health scare to realize very quickly how short life is and how important it is that you genuinely look after yourself. We need to live as long as we can. We need to be as well as we can. And I think we've got to really make that mindset shift about I call it fit your own mask first. So as you travel on an airplane and they say, fit your own mask before you help any other passengers, it's exactly the same thing. If you're not looking after yourself and actually giving that priority, you can't be the best sort of lawyer that you want to be. You can't be the best sort of husband or wife. You can't be the best sort of parent, friend, all of the things that we need to be in life. But going to the gym or fitting in time for a walk and a run is the first thing that'll drop off the list, because there's all this work to do. There's all this other stuff to do. And you've really got to purposefully change how you think about it and say, well, hang on, actually, that's the first thing I've got to do. And the other stuff fits in around it.
And will fall into place obviously a lot better. So that's great advice. And then so working your way through the rest
my
of
other four.
Well, good.
I was happy. So health, attitude is the second one, and attitude was my A word, but what I'm really talking about is mindset. So having an optimistic mindset. There are more pessimists in the law world than anywhere else, and some of the research I looked at suggests that pessimists are better lawyers than optimists.
Oh wow! So, okay, because they're obviously looking for the worst.
Exactly, they can find all the problems and prevent them from happening. But the problem, of course, then is if you're in a workplace and you're surrounded by people whose natural thought process is negative, it very quickly rubs off on you. So all you start sort of seeing and hearing are all of the terrible things that not only are happening, obviously, in your clients' files, but suddenly happening in your own life. And so we know, thanks to neuroscience, that you can retrain how your brain sees the world. Our brain is trained to find the negative because it keeps us safe. And we know that the psychological negative has the same impact on our brain as, for example, a tiger chasing me right now and me having to run away. Yep. That's why we're seeing so much psychological distress. So we're seeing that, again, neuroscience, brain scanning, positive psychology, things like gratitude practice. So taking the time every day to just pause and say to yourself, hang on, what were the great things that happened today? And they're often, perhaps from an outsider's perspective, meaningless, but they're actually so meaningful. I got to see an amazing sunset or sunrise. I, got to see my son or daughter do X, Y, Z. I got a kind email from someone at work today. Actually going through those motions every day and saying I'm grateful for these things starts to liven the part of your brain that is all around positivity and good thoughts, but also calm the part of your brain that's alive to all of the negativity. Yep. Kindness has a similar effect. So kindness, in terms of being kind to others, has a similar effect on the brain. So a couple of really simple things that we can do just to give us a more optimistic, positive mindset.
So we're not sort of applying our lawyer thought process, which is hear all of the terrible things, to our own personal lives, which we do tend to do.
No,
so number two.
Yep, yeah. So what's interesting on I guess attitude, humans, and this is referencing the book Sapiens. Like humans are the only creature on the planet that have like a dual reality, right? So we have kind of the physical things and things that are there, but then we have what we tell ourselves. So basically what you're saying is to change the narrative of what you're kind of telling yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. We see so many of us try and change how we feel without changing anything that we're doing or anything that we're thinking. We just go, I want to be happier.
Yep.
So magically that's meant to happen. You've got to genuinely change what you do and change how you think if you want to change how you
recalibrate. And I read a really interesting quote, really powerful quote from yourself, actually. And that was, I didn't have to spend lots of money or head off to and do something new. I didn't really have to leave law. I just had to change the way I saw the world, and that's kind of the most
that's
proud.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Change so much without and maybe you can't change the habit, but maybe that A sits in front of the H. Basically, and that gets you to be healthy and happy, right? Change your keep going. You got H and A.
Maybe.
I feel like we're on
we're
on a wheel of fortune. I guess been
yeah, that's right. You're like, what's next? So two P's. These for me are, they're both the same priority: passion and purpose.
Okay.
So passion, again, a lot of us are passionate about our jobs and our careers, but many of us actually aren't. And I think sometimes, again, in this modern day and age, there can be a sense of, I'm not that passionate about my job, so clearly I need a new job, or, I'm meant to feel like that. The thing with passions is that they're things that often have nothing to do with your work, but you've got to prioritize them as well and get them into your life because they will genuinely make you happy. And the way I describe a passion is they're the things that we all have in our lives that we love to do where we forget to eat and you forget what time of day it is. You can just do it all day. So, for some people it's reading, it's listening to music, it's playing music, it's watching Netflix series for a whole day because you just can. That some might say a time waste is, but actually they're the things that just bring joy to your life.
Yeah.
some of your passions you may actually be able to work into your actual job as well. And there might be aspects of your job in your career that you are passionate about and aspects that you're not. And so part of it for me too was really looking at how I practiced as a lawyer, what sort of business I run, and going, actually, this is the bit I love. This is the bit I'm good at. So why not restructure things a bit and focus on that and try and not have as much time in the space that I don't enjoy as much. So passion, purpose. I'm a big advocate for the work of Simon Sinek and his whole notion of starting with why, understanding why you do what you do. And we're seeing this very much in modern business. So businesses and people that are very clear about why they do what they do and can articulate that are successful in the modern business world. We are looking for those very authentic connections. So not only does it have a business aspect, but it has a human, again, personal aspect. If you're clear about why you're doing what you're doing, even on those really difficult days, you can come back to that and say, but hang on a second, this is the bit that I love. This is the thing that brought me to law. This is why I do what I do. And again, I'm going to reconnect with that and be clear about that. And it just makes all of those difficult moments much more manageable. Yep. So passion, purpose, two really important ones.
Well, it's great how they kind of, obviously they're all interconnected, but if you take purpose, it's like when an older couple, when one passes away, the other one, like kind of gives up the wheel to live. But it just shows how powerful in humans and in all kind of creatures, basically in life, how powerful purpose is. And that kind of drives, again, all those things that you mentioned, attitude and, you kind of, in your health, right? You kind of working and doing, a job without a purpose. It doesn't have to be, significantly changing the world, but it can really have a drastic effect on just getting out of bed in the morning and your health and, your kind of will to do all those things that you mentioned. All right. And then what are we left with? Why?
What's why? Why is you? Okay. So being authentic, being yourself, something that, again, I think in the legal industry is not necessarily spoken about or encouraged. It is an industry where I think there are a lot of expectations and stereotypes, and it can be very hard sometimes to live up to those if it's just not who you are. So for me, being authentic, playing to your strengths, like working out what you are actually really good at and trying to craft, again, your career and your life around that stuff rather than constantly trying to sort of battle up a hill going, I need to do this. So really being authentic to yourself, I think, is an absolute game changer and a key.
All right, awesome. I mean, that's a really powerful acronym right there. So, well, that's a secret.
Easy to remember.
Easy to remember, right? Okay. Well, you've published 2 books off the back of that. So one is A Happy Lawyer, Happy Life. So and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into that one. And then there's Splitsville, and naturally, given your domain being a family lawyer, that's kind of something that kind of you're well versed in, kind of experience every day. So taking the elements of what you just described as the happy lawyer and kind of approaching things in a positive way, is there really such a thing? And obviously Splitsville is a book based on this. Is there such a thing as a pleasant divorce experience?
I don't know that I would ever use the word pleasant, but I think there is a way to have whatever your divorce experience is, there is a way to have it in the calmest, kindest way for you. And that's what Splitsville is about. That's what my work now at Brisbane Family Law Centre is all about. So using largely collaborative practice, multidisciplinary practice, really looking at what other services outside of law are important for families going through separation and divorce. Divorce is a change process. So for me, it's really about taking the person from where they are today and moving them into the future in the calmest way possible so that they can go on and live the best possible life for them. So it's very future focused, very values focused, and very individual in that sense.
Wow. Okay. So, taking that experience and, you've seen obviously so many different kind of cases. What is the key to kind of getting someone through to the other side in terms of, a couple, whether it's one or the other come to you and in this time of need? What do you think it is that kind of, really kind of carries them through and goes, oh no, there's a hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel and gets them through?
Yeah. I think probably a couple of things. One is the real focus on the future. So that real capacity to think about, the bigger picture.
A new horizon.
And, get out of the nuts and bolts of how I feel today, which would be really difficult and distressing, and think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture is often children, extended family, friendships, like the impact of what I'm doing now, what that will mean down the track. And what that takes is people that I describe it this way. They value their relationships with others above all else. So despite the fact that I might be going through a divorce and I might be heartbroken, I'm still have immense respect for my former partner. I still care so much about my children that I'm not going to create any havoc for that person because it'll affect my kids. And that is it's a value set. It's a real value set to be able to say, yes, I'm hurting, but I'm going to put all of that above myself.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be so binary, right, in terms of the divorce process and the afterlife.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, I do a lot of work in collaborative practice, which is a really, for me as a professional, an amazing opportunity to work with people at such a difficult time. And you see parents particularly, you see them making such generous offers at times and making compromises that in any other process would just never happen. But it is that respect for the other person and the desire to see the other person go on and live a good life that creates an atmosphere of immense collaboration and compromise. Okay,
that's great advice. And so going back to what you mentioned about obviously collaboration and community that you mentioned at the top, you've recently created the club, and hopefully the first rule of the club is that you can't talk about it. We're screwed, but hopefully you can talk about it. But the club is an online mastermind program that brings together a crew of like really amazingly and kind of diverse kind of skill sets, so amazingly talented faculty members. And so you've only recently launched this, and you've sold out one intake already, which is fantastic. And people can sign up, and we'll share details afterwards on the post. But basically, you've started this, and it sounds like you're very passionate, and it's kind of gaining its own natural momentum, as you said, from kind of when you put pen to paper or digital paper back in 2013. How did that all come about, this latest initiative, and kind of tell listeners a little bit about what the actual club is, if you can?
So like everything in my life, it comes out through chance. And I think this is probably one of the advantages I have, because I don't overplan and I don't overthink. I genuinely try and live in the moment. You can receive feedback and input in the moment and go, hang on, there's an idea. And my way of working, particularly in this modern, wonderful entrepreneurial climate, is I have an idea and I implement it. So earlier this year, I ran the Happy Lawyer, Happy Life online course. So I took my book and converted it into an 8-week program. And the first group that came through that program, the feedback when it finished was, this was amazing, this was great. We enjoyed being part of what was in essence a Facebook group with lawyers all over Australia, supporting each other and saying, hey, good on you, as we worked through happiness. And some people said to me at the end, can we keep the group going? And I thought, well, we can, but what's the purpose? For me, there needs to be a structured purpose.
Big purpose, yeah.
Otherwise, we're just going to get on a Facebook group and chat about
it'll be cat memes and whatever, yeah.
Exactly. And then the other part of what was going on in my mind is, as I was watching my colleagues in this Happy Lawyer course, I realised how lucky I was, because I'm part of a really great entrepreneurial community up and down the eastern seaboard of Australia. I'm in a mastermind group that meets up quarterly that's got business owners that have absolutely nothing to do with law. And so much of the inputs that I get into my business now are from businesses that are very diverse and very different. And I think that's been part of my success. So I sort of thought, okay, what if I create that? What if I create that for lawyers? What if I pull together a faculty, as you say, of really, you'd look at it and go, this is really random. Like, what are you up to here? What's the point of all of this?
Team of kind of people,
Just, completely different thinkers. And focus on bringing together lawyers who are boutiques, who are solo operators. As you said, I think you gave the stat of 80%. I'd love to do some research around this, because there are so many solo lawyers operating in our country right now, from bedrooms, from dining tables, which is awesome, but it's incredibly isolating. And there's nowhere for them to go where they can ask the question, what about a practice management system? What about marketing? How do I use Facebook? What about video marketing? How do I do this?
Yep.
And so what the club does is it creates a community where each week we work on something different. So this week we're doing SEO, for example, and we've got one of our faculty members who's an expert in that stuff. He's doing a Facebook Live. We can all ask questions. And for a week, we can all focus on learning more about SEO. Last week, there was a wellness subject. The week before that, there was a marketing subject. So it's just giving structure and learning, and I guess a bit like business coaching, but an environment where we're collaborating and sharing. And someone might ask a question and someone will know the answer. And if we don't know the answer, we find the person that does. And it's been a really joyous thing for me to be a part of. And I think, as you say, it's sort of taken on a life of its own, which is amazing. It started in May. I had no idea that in such a short period of time it would sort of get this sort of snowball
That's
effect.
amazing.
But I'm definitely seeing with lawyers that there is this desire to work together, to learn from each other, to help each other, which creates a community, which, as you say, leads to happiness.
That is awesome. So it's kind of, I guess you got another intake popping up soon. Is that something that people can kind of jump in and sign up to?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a wait list system. I do intakes just at times, more so that people are coming in with, again, a bit of organisation purpose, and you're not just sort of randomly adding people all the time going, oh, hi, random person. Like, you've got no idea what we're doing.
So is that actually, is it the case of the club is actually, it's not so much an intake in a sense that it's actually just a growing community? Like, it won't be one set of people and then another set of people actually.
No, it's just a community. And really the intakes is part of me organising my own life. And being a bit structured about it, and just trying to give people the best experience so that, you know, a group can come in at once and we all learn together and meet each other together. And later this year, we're having a retreat, which is really exciting. So we're meeting up at Kingscliff, which is in northern New South Wales, place where I grew up. It's just beautiful.
Beautiful place,
we're going there. Yeah, we're going there for a couple of days, and we're just spending 2 days literally masterminding together. And I've got some amazing speakers coming in from our faculty, and just, really thinking about what's the future of law? What's the future of our practices? How can we stay vibrant in the industry that's really changing at the moment?
It sounds fascinating, and well done for I think bringing that initiative to life. And as you said, living in the moment and just doing it, right? That's the advice you give other
just
people.
Do it.
Just do it. And so that all sounds great, but how do you do it? You're kind of you're a wife, a mum. You've got your business. You've got the practice you're running. You've got the mediation practice you're running. You've got the club. Books.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done 2 books as well. So how do you do it? And how do you do it? What's the secret to managing your time?
Yeah, right. So
there's 2 of you, right?
Sometimes I do it really poorly.
That's truth. And I think, again, one of the challenges for many of us as lawyers is I'm a perfectionist to a point, but I'm also near enough is good enough is where I've got to. Maybe not on court documents, but on other stuff. I'm very purposeful about how I use my time. I am probably quite structured about that. I very much focus on today and not worrying too much about next week. I plan. I don't really do a lot of downtime. So I don't do a lot of, I'm just going to lie here and do nothing.
You do a retreat, and that's a work retreat.
Exactly. But that's my call, and that's how I choose to live. That's what I know about myself. I get a lot of joy out of doing a lot of stuff. So I think it's again working out what works for you. We're all different in that sense.
All right, great. So we're going to let you get back to kind of running the firm and doing all the other things we just mentioned. But just a few parting shots before we kind of head off. Getting back to, again, how you organize your day. Is there one ritual? Is there one thing that you kind of do in the morning that keeps you kind of sane and going? What's that?
Coffee.
Yeah, we hear that quite often.
That's my morning coffee that's still here at whatever time it is now.
Is it just the morning coffee, or are you kind of like are you on the forefront by the afternoon?
No, it's just that, actually. So where we live, there's an amazing coffee shop just down the road, and my husband's in the construction industry, so he goes to work well before I wake up. And so my daughter and I do have this morning ritual where we walk down there, sit down just for a couple of minutes, and it's probably 5 or 10 minutes, and we just chat and walk back. And it's a really important part of my day. It's just the thing that kicks me off and gets me going. And it's the thing that, at the moment, my daughter's down staying with my parents for the school holidays, and I feel really out of kilter because it's like half of me's not here.
Half of your routine.
And my little routine's like a bit out of kilter.
But the coffee's still there, always okay.
Yeah, I've still got my coffee, but I don't have my chatting friend. So just, that's probably my thing each day.
Awesome. And so what about, is there one bit of technology that you can't live without? I mean, apart from obviously your phone, and everyone's kind of addicted to the smartphones these days, but is there one bit of technology that you kind of use, whether it's some software or a gadget or whatever it is, or something that kind of keeps you
only one. Facebook. I use Facebook for so much stuff. So I have to say Facebook's a bit of a game changer for me. In terms of a couple of really great tech things that I use that I think are helpful, Canva. So the graphic design platform Canva, it's an Australian product. For someone like me that loves design, it's a dream. Like, you can waste hours on there making pretty pictures, but it's been really helpful for business as well. It's really
consumerizes that design. Have a lot of time to learn all the, which tools kind of relevant. Yep.
Exactly. Like, prior to that, trying to work out Creative Cloud on Adobe was just killing me. Whereas Canva's just so easy. So it's simple stuff like that. Trello is another one that I think is a really helpful software product that is just like, you probably know, but it's like electronic to-do lists, which again, you can make pretty with nice pictures.
Yep.
And so stuff like that I find they're largely free products. They're great. They can just make organizing your life a little bit easier.
Awesome. And it's interesting. I actually love that you say Facebook, because it's funny that it was such a taboo for the longest time with lawyers and Facebook, and obviously there's different ways that they've got to use it, but in terms of marketing, it's really changed the game, right? And it's something that they shouldn't be afraid and dip your toe in. And I'm sure if they're in the club, they can probably find out more about those kinds of things. So that's promising. And so you are Android, Windows, iOS kind of user?
I'm a normal, Android, Windows user with an iPhone.
I was about to say, because for design, like normally people who have like design aesthetic or design background usually tend towards go towards the Apple products, but you've got the whole gamut. You've got everything covered. So. All right, awesome. So we better let you get back and try and finish your coffee, your morning coffee. But it's been fantastic to have you on, and I think you're doing an amazing job of making people happy. You made me happy today. It was great to have a chat.
Oh, thanks.
Wish you all the best with all the new projects popping up and that journey. So
thank you so much.
No worries.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye-bye.